Going to be starting to drink soon. This is amazing. I'm done for the day, which is pretty cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Paul McIntyre with the CMOs, who's going to learn about what tools they require to drive effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul McIntyre once again.
Thank you, Justin. And you're done. I've got 2 to go. Thanks for that.
Hello.
Righto. So Rose Between the Thorns. We're good there. Susan and Jon. Great. Okay. So you may or may not know these people, but they are got some very, very interesting views on how they're using media, and we're going to ask them obviously the $300 million question of what's their views on kind of television at the moment, the state of linear and beyond, and we'll get way beyond that, but we do need to start with that because clearly there might be a couple of television people in the room, they might want to know. So I think we'll go from the far end, Stu, we'll start from you, but first up, just top line, what does it look like, what does TV and linear TV to start with look like from CMO land? From your perspective, well, you're Chief Customer Officer, I should say, at HiPages, and if you know Stu, he's been CommBank and Aussie Home Loans Marketing, and he's in a sort of tradie house now with, what do we talk about, 3 million?
Oh, we've had 3 million people ever post a job on our platform, and we have an active base of around 32,000 tradies.
Tradies, right. Yeah. And Susan's a fan. She's used the tradies, so there you go.
That's
We've got alignment on the panel. So, Stu, just in terms of now, you were I guess, slightly famous a few years ago when you went to HiPages and did a big brand campaign. You know, if many of you remember, but HiPages was very bottom of the funnel, search focused, and then Stu came in and said, we've got to do some other, got to build the brand, and so he did that, and it kind of worked. But right now, Stu, in terms of your perception of what's going on in linear TV, what's going on in your head?
It's very important for us. As you said, we literally built our brand, at least on the consumer side or the homeowner side, off the back of linear TV, and more specifically, a very big move we took on the block a few years ago. It's less so on the tradie side. We have to get a little bit smarter on our screens, so it's less around linear and getting targeted on channels like YouTube to reduce waste. But I'm somewhat ambivalent between, you know, whether we call it linear or BVOD. It's still a viewer, and as long as it's a good piece of creative meeting the right viewer, then I'm cool with it.
Top line on linear though, you would have seen the talk around it. What does that do for you in terms of where you know what you think?
Well, I think if you're choosing your programming right and it's an impactful spot, then okay, so maybe linear audiences might be down 20%, but as far as I'm concerned, they're just making it up 1-for-1 on BVOD, so I'm okay with that.
So a linear for a BVOD, it's all good for you?
I'm good.
It's one universe, one world.
I'm all good.
Susan, your perception on television, and by the way, we know you're all good, it was just more about television.
No.
So Susan, just context for you, obviously you've launched a really big new campaign globally for Australia, Brand Australia.
Yep. Come and say good day.
Come and say good day. It's 3 months ago?
October, so what's that now, almost 6 months ago, if you can believe that.
Yes, so a lot of action happening globally for you. Television, we've heard today, certainly in the US and here, linear audiences are struggling or declining, not dying. I got wrapped over the knuckles with that, so we don't say that we use that word, please, on this panel. But perceptions on linear TV and TV.
Yeah, look, still incredibly important, still a key part of our mix. I wouldn't say it is the largest part of our mix. We've never had the luxury of big budgets to have big TV buys around the globe. Again, we operate typically in 15 markets around the world. For a short time through the pandemic, we were active here in Australia. We did drop a lot in TV. I think we were at about 40% of our budget, I think, was dropped in TV during that period here domestically. But internationally, you know, we have to, we have to get our brand message out there again in 15 markets or so. So we've been very targeted with our TV. We go for an appointment viewing or event viewing sort of strategy with our broadcast TV. But again, still incredibly important. It gives us the talkability, it gives us the reach. But again, we don't think about linear TV in isolation anymore. It is 100% part of a broader screen strategy. Screen strategy,
okay. And do you think, so when you talked about before, TV is not your biggest part of your media allocation, what is?
Well, with Come and Say Good Day, so we were about 75% of our budget was spent on screens, about 22-ish% or so of that was spent on linear TV, probably about, I think, 25 to 70% or so was spent on connected TV or YouTube, and largely YouTube is very heavy in our Western markets. Then, of course, we use other social media channels for video, and then we also use cinema. You may or may not have heard we did a 9-minute film that's been out there, and it was wonderful to be able to see that on the big screen and have it really feel like a piece of cinema.
Good, righto. And we might have some time to look back around on some of your numbers. Jon, so Jon is CMO at Pet Circle. It's a VC-backed direct-to-consumer pet play. Thanks, Jon. I was getting there. I was just catching up with myself. There's what you've got, hundreds of millions in revenue, top 5 online retailer in the country, and how many customers?
Depending on how you look at them, 93 actives, about 500,000.
500,000 active customers buying pet stuff, everything from, I think, pre-prepared fresh food delivery. Is that right? Or is that coming?
We haven't got there yet.
Oh, sorry, just blew it. Sorry, that's coming. There's a product launch.
That's on the back,
you better get onto him to
Let me know.
Maybe I'll
Going
need to buy some TV to launch it.
Yes, that's right. Well, that's just me being ahead of the curve there. So you've got, and now your perception and how you look at screens and television particularly, Jon, give us your sense.
Yeah, okay. Specifically with TV, I mean, I'll take a slightly different position. So I think things that I think that linear TV needs to do better. First is I think it's a very flexible medium. So for me, you know, I've used TV squared or various methods over the years where you triangulate lift when a spot runs. Now you don't get the spot run 2 or 3 weeks afterwards it's run. Like, it's crazy. Why don't you get it immediately? So I just think there are some things within TV where you're just not getting those feedback loops that as a marketer, you want to get them as soon as you possibly can. You know, we're still sending BIOS via Excel. Like, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I'm sure Spotify could just about run a TV market. Anyway, sorry, not Spotify, Shopify. Shopify.
I was going to say that gets
anyway,
interesting.
But, you know,
yeah.
the notion of a marketplace is so simple. Like so many companies have done it. I don't quite understand why the industry hasn't embraced that kind of technology. And then the other piece is the audiences. I mean, I've heard it a few times, but you know, our new pet parents are millennials, Channel Zs, and you know, they're not watching linear. We have to find a way to try and reach those, and it's generally with a screen strategy as opposed to purely a linear TV approach.
Okay, so we've got the top line. Let's get to, I think, the important thing here is, well, actually, give me your quick senses also on. We've had a lot of conversation today on the streaming services that are coming in with ad tiers, with ad offers. For a marketer, for someone who's driving your own business growth, when you hear that sort of stuff, how does it land, Stu? How does it land? Does it matter? Does it make you think?
Yeah, I haven't honestly spent a lot of time thinking about it, but again, if it gives me a well-targeted viewer in the right mindset, then I think it's okay. I don't think our budgets would actually spread to going a little bit going that thin, but you never know. Let's see.
So if you had to choose between what you've got now with a BVOD, linear, and YouTube versus SVOD, you would stick at this stage?
Well, look, I think we're in an interesting position, right? So we think about our traditional homeowner audience, so we're talking on the consumer side now. A 45 plus is still in those traditional sort of channels, but I guess we've got an emerging market. I don't know whether anyone under 45 can afford a property in Australia anymore, but their viewing consumptions are different. So we will be challenged now in terms of traditional channels versus emerging channels. And so I think we're going to have to play, and maybe FY24 might be a tipping point on that. We're going to have to start dabbling to reach that new emerging market whilst we're still protecting the traditional market.
Right, and
so we can't ignore it completely, but we're just going to have to tread lightly.
Got it. And we should say, I mean, you are a two-sided marketplace, right? Just to be clear, you've got consumers you're trying to get into your marketplace to use tradies, and you've got to have tradies to meet that supply.
That's right.
That's your big...
So we're balancing both of those. Yes. So, we're not really appealing to a renter market because they're not making their own tradie decisions. So you're talking hardcore property owners, 40 plus.
Got it. Which is, are you 40 plus, Susan?
I mean, barely.
Right, okay. So your take on when you hear all this stuff around Netflix bringing in an ad tier and Binge on Foxtel and all the others coming through, does it have any impact on what you think in your day job?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we always have to be evaluating new media opportunities. We need to be where our consumers are. I talk a lot about fishing where the fish are with my team. And we will need to evolve our media strategy, certainly. But again, we are on a market-by-market basis. We have an interesting I guess, split in our audience, and our Western markets tend to be a bit older, as you're saying with your homeowners. Our Western markets, our high-yielding travelers do tend to be a little bit older, so being on linear TV that may skew a bit older still works for us. Some of our Asian markets, our high-yielding travelers, interestingly, are a bit younger, so we need to be more cognizant of the digital channels for them. And again, look, even market by market, it does change for us. Interestingly, linear TV is growing in India, for example, which is probably a reflection of where they are economically and growing and developing. But yeah, again, we have to look at it on a market by market basis. I don't think we can stand still with a media strategy. I think you have to keep evolving and keeping your eye on your audience.
John, so again, same question. Streamers coming in, what does it do for you?
Look, I mean, I think we track incremental reach. We think it's important, and I know there's the quality dimension as well that you need to manage. But that to us is important. We know that younger generations are watching those streaming platforms. They're expensive at the moment, to be honest. When you stack it up against other alternatives, it's hard to get sort of the paybacks to stack up. But they're interesting. I think we'll test it. I think like anything, you got to go take a buy, test it, look at and see if it works for you.
And we'll get to your agenda shortly about that challenge you talk about, Susan.
If I can jump on that as well, if you don't mind. Also, I think if these services also start to innovate in the units that they're offering to advertisers as well, if they offer total exclusivity, or if they're better at integration or something like that, that starts to all of a sudden become much more interesting and compelling as well. And for us, I mean, I talk about sort of event viewing for us as our TV strategy. We tend to be at our best with our broadcast partners when we're able to integrate with them. So, we did something we called our Travel Takeover Week back in January of whatever in the pandemic, I can't remember. And we worked really closely with our media owners across all channels. But with our broadcast partners, we did a takeover of the project, for example. We did integration with questions and a quiz show, and I can't remember what it is, sorry, domestically. Internationally, when we launched Come and Say Good Day in the US, we got Rose Byrne on the couch with Jimmy Fallon. We had Will Arnett on the couch with
That
James
other famous
Corden,
person.
the other Jimmy. So we love the opportunity for quality integration, and again, if we start to see innovation from some of those streaming, with the paid advertising models, it'll be.
Well, you're pretty integrated into the block. I mean, are you going to do that again? Where are you at now? Are you going to keep going on that? Yep. So you're back.
We've just signed up for the 5th year. We're shaking it up a little bit, but. Yeah, we're there again.
And integration is an important
part.
part.
I mean, to be able to show contextual relevance, we're not a physical product, so you need to be seeing our app, or you need to be seeing the transaction happening between the tradie and the homeowner. So that contextual relevance of a very strongly viewed show against the right audience with the opportunity to showcase our product, you can't beat it. But on the other hand, for tradie, when we want to reach tradie, if these new channels allow us to target a tradie specifically, and even more specifically, a tradie decision maker, we'll be all over it. Because we kind of waste, other than like tradie radio at 5:30 in the morning on Triple M, anything that's mass, we're kind of wasting our money against the tradie audience.
Good point.
Exactly.
So listen, let's get to the broader CMO agenda here, because I know I'm just looking, God, we've got 18 minutes, we've got lots to get through. So let's start with you, Susan, the broader CMO agenda. Now, just in terms of, we talked earlier about your weighting and your mix. You're actually moving budgets at the moment, and it'll probably be music to this crowd's ears in that you're moving budgets out of customer CX and web dev and all those things that are back end. You're moving it out and you're going into main media or paid media. That's what you're doing. So what are you doing and why?
Yeah, so again, we are a different organization in that we don't sell directly. We are very top of funnel, and we work with our partners, our airlines, our travel agents, et cetera, to actually do the transacting. And we have got an amazing website that we've invested a lot in over the last couple of years, both in terms of content and functionality. It was a Webby Award-winning website, et cetera. We will continue to maintain that, to nurture it, et cetera. But we're very clear that for the next 2 to 3 years, while we really focus on rebuilding and recovery, we have to talk to those high-yielding travelers where they are. Again, fishing where the fish are. They aren't necessarily all living on a government tourism body's website. They are out there consuming really great travel content or lifestyle content, wonderful content in many other media channels around the world. And we just need to be out there where they are and influencing them. And our category is more competitive than it ever has been. I mean, I think the world was already starting to kind of cotton on to how important tourism is to the economy, but nothing like turning off the taps to show a government the value of that tourist dollar. And so a lot of other destinations are coming out swinging, not least of which, by the way, is the Middle Eastern markets, who have very deep pockets. So I just need to make sure that Australia is front and center, top of mind, as salient as possible with the audience that we target, those high-yielding travelers.
So it's brand and consideration is where
Brand
you're
and
going.
consideration. If we don't win in consideration, we don't win anywhere else through our customer journey. And we're also very mindful. You probably read in the marketing press, what our global advertising budgets are, and they might seem really huge. They aren't when you divide them by 15 markets or so. So I've got to make sure that we're using our precious resources and ad dollars as.
We did have about 140, is that right?
Yeah, something like
So
that.
140, 150 million.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Over multiple years, over 15 markets. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, again, it spreads itself pretty thin, pretty quickly, and when you add media inflation on top of that, right, it gets pretty tricky.
And so what is the quantum of the shift out of, say, your CX and web dev into media? Are we talking 10, 15, 20% at reallocation?
There's possibly more.
Possibly more.
Yeah.
So if that's
Of that
30,
budget,
40 mil.
of that budget, as opposed to the total budget.
Oh,
Sorry, to
damn,
be fair.
I was getting there.
To be fair, yeah.
Right,
No.
No, nearly had a number. John, you've got some really interesting new pressures coming in from your VC owners, right? So the change in the economics means that there's less about growth. It's all about showing some numbers. Talk us through your new pressures now.
I mean, we're a privately held company, and they essentially assessed our marketing investment through payback. So that's what you pay to acquire a new customer and how long it takes to pay back. You got two, and so there are two sort of arguments. The first is that we know we need to go up the funnel. We know we can only harvest so much demand, and you run out of fish.
Yeah.
So we know that we need to create an argument to go up the funnel. So we, and using the digital straitjacket, that metrics, it's very hard to make that case. So the way that we approach.
What do you mean by that, though? Digital strategy.
So last click metrics.
Okay, right.
Force you down the bottom of the funnel. You end up talking to the same customers, and the ones that are most efficient are probably already existing.
Right.
So it's very hard to then create new customers to your business, and we need to grow. Like, we're on a growth agenda. So the way that we look at it is we try and, I mean, it's essentially almost a testing culture. And you try and create confidence in what you're doing through using data. And we share a monthly report with our VCs on our marketing. So we are showing everything under the covers. There's nothing to hide. What we then do is we will always hold out a market. So whatever we're doing, we'll always have a market held out. And then we will progressively test moving up the funnel to try and find something that grips. And we, an interesting data point we got the other day is for every 5 points of awareness, we get an up to 10% improvement in our performance in media. So that now gives me a model or a metric to then start saying, right, we need to go invest up the funnel, even though you're not going to see a 12-month payback.
Yeah.
We
need a case study that. You need to get that out there. We all need that.
Yes.
Well, I'm working on it. But I mean, actually, back to the capital markets. I mean, we were on 24 months, and they were saying spend. We're now under 12,
That's your return on getting a customer.
We have to pay back that customer within 12 months. Now, average customer tenure is like 8 years. It's a crazy model in that sense, but the VCs are spooked. They're preserving capital, and the cost of capital has gone up. And what they do is the way that they constrain it is they shrink your paybacks.
Right.
That's one way is looking.
What does that force you to do, though? How does that force you to change your strategy in the last 12 months?
Well, I mean, your immediate reaction is to move lower down the funnel, but you know that's the wrong approach because they've still got the growth agenda, so they're trying to get cake and eat it. So what you then got to do is you've got to find data points like the one I've said. Then you run control markets and you try and progressively test up. And then you can get fancy and use media mix models and all these sort of things which I've run, which are great, but require a lot of data, a lot of investment, a lot of time to get really effective and robust. So what we'll do is we're actually now working with this assumption that we know, we have a belief that we need to go up the funnel. We have a belief that awareness, consideration, mental availability, and all that stuff will drive our long-term business growth. And we've got consensus on that. So now what we're doing is we're trying to, I said, build tests, but also actually build business rules to correct sort of imperfect markets. So the digital market is imperfect, gives you the wrong answer. We know it's wrong. We just don't know how flawed it is. So we now actually have an agreement where, as our proportion of marketing spend per revenue goes up, we will apply some of it to, or most of the incremental to the upper funnel. So you can't just keep stuffing it down the bottom of the funnel because you're just hitting the same customers over and over again. So we're using a combination of lots of testing. They get confidence in you. The more you talk their language, what I found is with the CFOs, C-suite, VCs, they want to hear that you're using data and you're being effective and responsible with it. You may have the wrong answer. You probably do most of the time, but the process of it gives them confidence. Then you have to sort of step them through the belief process, and then you've got to. I think it's a flawed market. So then I think you've just got to create market corrections, which in our case will be as we move up as a percentage of revenue, we'll apply most of that incremental to upper funnel build the brand, and the long-term success of the business, which we know we've got to invest in.
Two quick questions. When you say the digital market's flawed, what do you mean by that?
It's giving you an impression of a return on your investment that is flawed. So I'll give you an example. So like we work on a CAC or a CPA. So,
cost of customer acquisition. Yeah.
So we might go and acquire customers that buy a novelty toy, never buy anything else from us ever again.
As in a pet toy, not a pet toy.
Never buy anything.
Just needed to be clear.
Yeah. We've got this floppy fish I should introduce you to. But for us, we need food customers. They're the ones that have great LTVs. But if I stick on that one metric, if I focus on that metric, it's the optics look good, but the business value is really poor.
Right.
And that is right through that digital suite of metrics.
Right. Okay.
I mean, that's the weakness, isn't it, of the digital era for the last 10 to 15 years. It's the sort of false profit, I guess, of that data.
But we're responsible for it in some ways, because as marketers and the media industry, we left a vacuum, and it's filled by the digital metrics. We've now got to find ways to correct that in some form or another.
Okay, and so quick next question before I go to Stu, with 10 minutes left, crikey. Top of the funnel, when you talk about you are trying to inch further back up using proof points, where is that top of funnel money going? So where are you allocating it?
We're sort of working our way up, but it will be on screens. So I do believe in screens. We're also building a bunch of sort of business rules and a playbook to try and manage it, but typically screens and on probably more flexible screens. So back to your like the Netflixes and so on. If they were to come into the market and we buy our own digital media for the most part. If I could buy it directly and then test it, that would be more attractive to me than going through this sort of inflexible system where 3 weeks later when your spot ran.
Right.
So I think for me, I think that's one of the key challenges. We've got to solve that gap. I've got to get some real time. I need real time sort of performance, and then you've got to have the ability to optimize that inventory.
Okay, so Stu, how does that compare? Well, firstly, the difference is you're 4 to 5% of your revenues as marketing budget. Is that right, John? 4 to 5?
4 to 5 now, but we should be 10.
Yeah. Stu, what's yours?
Oh, it's a bit more than that.
How much more? 15, 20?
More, about that.
Yeah.
But we don't have cost of sales. That is our cost of sales. We don't have cans, we don't have food, we don't have distribution. So that basically is our cost of sales, all right?
Yep. Okay. So that's that first bit question. There's a good proportion.
Yep.
You will say that your revenues are not as high as others, so that
no.
gets you out of the can in terms of being a big spender.
That's right. We're not a big spender.
20%,
Relatively speaking.
20%. 15 mil. Would that be right?
Roughly.
Oh, gee, good on. Thank you.
How did you work that out?
He's annoyingly good at math.
That includes our staff costs, but yeah, that's about right.
Okay, and so what are the pressures on your business? So what's happened the last 12 months for you, and even more so now, I guess in the next 6 months, we're still a real estate market that's changing.
Look, we're very counter-cyclical. So when times are booming, tradies need us less, but times are tightening, as homeowners are definitely tightening up their belts. So we've been overwhelmed by inquiry onto our platform by tradies literally since the 1st of January.
Right. That's good for us, because I can't get one still.
Yeah, no, it's soft. Their capacity is freeing up, but we're definitely seeing that. Look, I think the key thing for us is that for a start on the homeowner side, we're an infrequent purchase. So you might need between 4 and 7 tradies a year in your house. So we just need to be maintaining top of line awareness and then be there when they're ready to buy. So that's the key thing. And the second thing is, thankfully, because we're not an e-commerce platform, unlike John, I don't have to prove a return on every spot, which is great, all right? So what we've seen in the last 5 years, when I joined the company, I was a bit horrified that we were sitting on around about 27% prompted awareness. We've lifted that to 66% in 5 years. And when I joined, our reliance on paid, the percentage of jobs that came from paid media, so search.
Paid search, yep.
Was 55%. and now it's 16%. So we've actually sort of proven out the value of investing in brand over time, and we now are way less dependent on paid search, and we use it strategically to balance the marketplace. So right now we need a few more jobs in Sydney, or we need plumbing jobs in Western Melbourne, or we need electricians in Adelaide, so we can act on that pretty fast, right? So we're sort of working out the top of the funnel, and we've kind of got the bottom funnel worked out, and now we're focusing on the mid funnel.
Right.
All right. So particularly on the tradie side, tradies, we're building awareness, but they're not always ready to buy. Their business conditions change, their category dynamics change. Sometimes there's seasonality. So how can we create a digital and content-led nurture funnel that takes intent, or maybe turns a suspect into a prospect, and then into a customer? And we're working hard on an inbound marketing program right now that fills that gap in the middle, specifically for tradies.
And that's a content play, mate.
It's a content and tech play,
right,
where you might get a signal from usually a digital channel that we can then create a value exchange with that tradie with a valuable piece of content, and nurture and nurture and nurture until they're ready to buy.
Is it working?
Very exciting.
Is it working?
We haven't launched it
Oh,
yet.
so you tested?
We're putting the kit in right now.
Right, okay.
And we'll be launching, and we'll be testing like crazy. We'll be running 1 million experiments.
Yeah.
And we'll have 1 million journeys, but we'll be effective by next quarter.
Okay, can I ask all, because I just keep looking at that clock, the measurement, biggest challenge, we've heard a lot about it today, to all of you, I'll ask you to answer is, do media metrics matter and contribute to building a business case for your exec leadership teams? So when you've heard some of the stuff that's going on here, it absolutely has a role for, a certain part of the market, but do media metrics matter, Jon, to you?
Yes.
Which bits, which and how? Well, what do you want to see more of?
The way I think about metrics is you have input metrics and output metrics. So I think initially let's try and really get clean on the input metrics. For those sort of things would be like, I don't know, frequency, like the typical stuff, reach, all those sort of things. Quality of impact, if you can get good at measuring that, awesome. What I will then do is I correlate it with the output metrics, and I try and find relationships between the two. And that's how you then optimise your plan. That's how you then build your overall marketing plan.
Okay.
So I think, I'm a big believer in you measure whatever you can. A lot of it will be shit, and you put it to one side, but measure it anyway.
Okay.
Measure it anyway, because you may find an insight, you may find another insight, that you hadn't expected.
Okay, so Stu talked about having a halo effect or a long-term impact from his brand build into paid search.
Yep.
You've got something.
We're seeing that too.
You're seeing that. That's right. I just wanted to ask about that. What did you do? You did a bit of a pilot.
No. Because we have control markets, we have different awareness levels in each. So then you can triangulate your awareness with your performance metrics, and you can create a relationship between the two.
Right.
So we're seeing pretty strong correlation between performance media effectiveness and our awareness and consideration.
Okay, and
that's giving us some confidence to go in and reinvest in the top of the funnel.
And it's giving the VCs a bit of confidence that this stuff is working maybe a bit longer than 12 months. Have you shifted them on that yet?
We're shifting them on that. It's a process.
Yeah. Susan, media metrics.
Yeah, look, interestingly...
By the way, just how much time do you spend on media versus all the other things you do as a CMO? Your time, is it... Typically it sits between 5 and 10% for a CMO. I don't know whether you fit with that.
Yeah, peaks and troughs as well. Going into a big global launch like we did, it was significantly more. Probably 10 to 15%. I've got an incredible media team actually that manages it for me, and I do rely on them a lot. And look, interestingly, for us as a business, I guess the thing that we talk about at a board and at an executive level does tend to be more around how competitive we are in market. As I mentioned before, tourism is getting more and more competitive. More markets have more money to spend. We used to talk about media thresholds. How much do we need to be competitive, or to be driving awareness and consideration in our markets around the world? We've never been able to have enough money to do that. We've started instead talking about competitive spend and share of voice and ESOV. Again, that's a little bit daunting when you're seeing some of the deep pockets of some of the other markets, and to see how active they are in some of our key markets. But yeah, look, in terms of campaign or media planning, media metrics, that is much more the domain of the marketing department. But we take that information, we ladder that back up then into demonstrating results to the ELT and to the board. And tying it to our broader brand metrics and studies that we have in market. So how are we performing from a media perspective? How are we reaching our audiences? How engaged are they? And then are we seeing shifts in our brand metrics?
Okay, Stu, media metrics for you, do they matter? And how do media and platforms contribute to your mission? But
Look, I think yes and no. Yes, we want to keep finding cost-effective channels to reach, particularly the tradie audience. It's a hard audience to reach. It's not just the tradies, it's actually the guys and girls that run tradie businesses. So I want to keep finding cost-effective media to reach those guys. But no, I can never imagine us deploying a media mix model, all that stuff. I think it'd be a waste of time for us. I take a much more holistic, balanced view. If it's driving positive brand metrics around awareness, consideration and preference, and it's driving our key commercial metrics around jobs and tradie inquiry, then I'm okay with it. We could disappear up our, trying to analyse every single spot. I'd rather take a long-term view and then it pays off. The bottom line is that if no one's ever heard of you and they don't have an emotional affiliation with you, they won't buy from you. So call me old-fashioned.
No, that's good. Your linkage is a bit tighter though with the data as well. We heard on the earlier panel about the frustration from agencies sometimes of the clients not having all the data they need to make real-time decisions. You're pretty fast, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, the analytics team that I have is the second biggest team that I have working for me.
Right.
So we look at a lot of things. I mean, and we've got like performance curves by channel, all that stuff. But there is a risk that you just become enamored with the data and you actually don't know what to do with it. But we're pretty good at building the narrative that's required to actually create action and change.
So you got a big analytics team.
Yep.
Standout channels for you in the last 12 months, next 6, 12 months, what's looking hot? And I shouldn't say hot, effective. How about that?
Anything but search would be the sorry to Adrian and Google, but we know we need to move from demand harvesting to demand generation.
Right.
So the channel mix that allows us to do that will be the one that we'll choose, and we will test our way in, but rapidly, to determine what that mix.
Where are you leaning at the moment in terms of demand generation, not harvesting? Is that what you said?
We're predominantly demand harvesting.
Right, now you are, because you're down.
All of our focus is on figuring out, a playbook or a go-to-market method that allows us to move systematically up the funnel.
Yeah, and so quick tip on which channels, where you're going, what does it look like? I won't hold you to it on stage.
Digital screens is probably where we're seeing the best return. So BVOD,
right,
and lots.
BVOD versus YouTube. What's the difference? Is there a difference?
BVOD gives you quality of impact. YouTube gives you great incremental reach.
Right.
So I think you've got to have a specific role across each of those screens. So like all of them have various sort of dimensions that you can leverage to get to the overall goal.
We are 50 seconds over. Final wrap up from Susan first. Just the key watch out for you for the next 12 months. And
Key watch out, audience fragmentation, cost inflation, quality of data.
Okay, Stu.
I think it's less around spots and dots and the hyper targeting. Let's think about behavioural considerations. I'll give you one example. We use YouTube, 60% consumed on mobile during smoko time to target tradies.
Right. Makes sense.
And chocolate milk.
Exactly.
And
chocolate milk maybe one day. $1, maybe $1 coffees at 7-Eleven, you never know.
Nice, great way to end. Put your hands together for the panel. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Johnny. That's great.